Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Brendan Roberts, and tonight I will be talking to you about piracy off the Horn of Africa. The Horn of Africa is right here, that goes up into the Gulf of Aden as well, and circumnavigates off the east coast of Somalia in the Indian Ocean. This is where the majority of pirate attacks happened on the eastern coast, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on: the history for both the indigenous people of Africa region that eventually became pirates, and then also the history of how the U.S. military and other countries came about to help subside and help the merchant vessels traveling through that area. So the reason why piracy was a big industry, I guess, that came up for the indigenous people of Africa, mainly smaller tribes out of Habio and Haradera in Somalia, was because they used to rely on fishing off the coast of Africa, mainly Somalia and up in parts of the Gulf of Aden. This was their main source of income. When the merchant vessels and big companies that started to come through with the big trawlers, this started to limit the amount of fish, and their living essentially went away. So with them already being a poorer country, they turned to a different source of revenue, and that was piracy. The main reason why this is a huge hotbed for piracy is that you have four different major, I guess, merchant vessel travel lines that go through that little area of the Horn of Africa, mainly straight through the Gulf of Aden, and then also right on the coastline that goes all the way down to Mogadishu, and then also down to Kenya as well. The big thing, as we all know, is with the World Health Organization. They send a lot of food for humanitarian aid to Kenya and Somalia because the countries aren't as populous and well off as other countries. The people who, I guess, were out of work due to these trawlers coming in decided that what they would do is they would try to hijack vessels, mainly fish to start off, to supplement their income by holding them ransom in for essentially hijacked the vessels. They later transitioned on when they started to hijack other merchant vessels that were carrying other goods, such as military weapons or tanks, even grenades, anything like that, and they could get millions and millions of dollars in return for ransom. So they just continued to do it, and there wasn't many patrolling off of there wasn't a lot of military assets patrolling off the coast of Somalia or in the Gulf of Aden at that time, so they could get away with it a very, very high amount of times. At the height, about in 2003 to 2005, there was approximately 300 to 400 piracy attacks a year just off the coast of Somalia and in the Horn of Africa area as well. So obviously, once the military, the U.S., but mainly merchant vessels that were out of the EU, they saw this as a problem. A lot of French, a lot of British, German, all those merchant vessels were getting hijacked, and they would have their citizens on board. So they came together and they formed a coalition of U.S., British, European Union countries where they actually would set up patrols off the coast of Africa. What they would do is they would start at one end, so the western end and the eastern end of the Gulf of Aden, and they would patrol back. They would send out messages to merchant vessels, all the companies, and they would say, hey, just so you know, we're going to be traversing from west to east, east to west, from this time starting at this location. So if you want to send your vessels to here, you'll have a military escort through the Gulf of Aden, and then also there were patrols off the Horn of Africa that would go up and down from the north to the south, repeating the same process. What this provided was safety for the merchant vessels traveling through the area if they wanted to be in a tight group, but also it allowed for faster response time to those vessels that didn't want to wait around for the coalition, or if there was food that needed to get there before it got spoiled. The military would keep a helicopter rotating throughout the whole entire day, whole entire night. So if a piracy attack came in, they could easily traverse over to it and help thwart it. It didn't always work, but it did help hinder it. And by the end of 2007, 2009, those 300 to 400 attacks went down to approximately 100 attacks, with much less percentage of them being successful. So the military response definitely helped with hindering the piracy attacks off of the coast of Somalia. As you can see, it does. You can see both sides of the story, where the pirates, the indigenous people who eventually became pirates, wanted to supplement their income from those merchant vessels that had come in with their trawlers and stole all their fish and their livelihood, essentially. And then also you can see from the other aspect, especially for a lot of people, you may know the Mears, Alabama incident where a U.S. captain was taken hostage, where the military wanted to react and make sure that all the merchant vessels were being safely traversed for their citizens, and then also that the supplies that needed to get to those places in the Horn of Africa and down into Kenya got there safely and to help those in need. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Horn of Africa, and if you have any questions, please let me know.